Things had gotten so bad at one point, I thought about killing myself. That is a testimonial statement from a VTuber named Bunny, who in a 2-page essay writes out how bad her time at AkioAir Management was starting on the 8th of September 2023. She released this testimony just yesterday as of this recording, October 1st, 2023. And in this, she outlines a lot that's pretty disturbing about AkioAir as a whole. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Now, for those who haven't watched Dragon Ball Z up to this point, allow me to give you a brief recap of why AkioAir management is shady and shouldn't be trusted. Recently, AkioAir had debuted their first generational line of girls, and all was going well in the kingdom until we came to one girl called Nofi, who we find out Nofi is underaged, an actual minor worldwide. She's about 14 to 15 years of age, and Akio signed her anyway. After Nofi was introduced and brought out that she was indeed a minor, a lot of people had a lot of backlash to say about this and how it was unsafe for Nofi. Basically, in layman's terms, the VTubing scene is very lewd. Like, so lewd it makes strip clubs in Vegas seem Christian. It's so dirty and disgusting and adult themed that it's honestly been a white sheet that's been tainted by a lot of mud. And yeah, I hate what it's become, but it is what VTubing is nowadays. A lot of VTubers are lewd tubers at this point, and it's quite sad, in my opinion. But despite all this, AkioAir decides to double down and say no matter what, they will not interfere with her pursuit of her dream, and that they ensure her talent and her well-being are going to be safe and maintained. And while this seems like a very sentimental ChatGPT response, yesterday we got a response from another VTuber who actually worked at AkioAir, who we'll call Bunny. And note that this testimony has things like menacing, intimidating, and thoughts of self-harm and self-deletion. So let's dive into Bunny's response of working at AkioAir. My name is Bunny and I'm a former AkioAir talent. I played the character Vix E. Gray during my time at AkioAir. I am no longer working with them and have not been working with them since the 8th of September 2023. Keep that date in mind, as well as keep in mind the name Jason, for he gets mentioned a lot throughout this. The reason I am finally writing this statement is because the claims AkioAir and Jason regularly made on how they cared about our health and well-being as talents and as people. I had issues with AkioAir from the very beginning of my time there. For reference, just before I signed, my dad had passed away, so I was very emotionally vulnerable as anything good was a light in the dark for me during this time period. Upon being offered a place at Akio, Jason commented on this fact, saying he had heard me discuss this matter and he apologized for my loss. We spoke a bit before he mentioned how if I took too long, more than a couple of weeks, to sign the contract, I might not be able to join. I happily signed the contract very early on, so I just wanting some good to happen after all the bad. I asked regularly whilst reading the contract and signing if I could know about who my generational mates were going to be, and was simply told you can't know till you've signed, which I assumed was normal, though my concern was whether I would get along with these people or not, but he assured me it would all be fine. There was no mention of a minor. I only found out about Nofi's age when I first spoke to her in a voice call about a week or so after signing with Akio, and this only came out due to her mentioning being a child to me during this call. I was not happy with this, and very strongly informed Jason of this matter of how I didn't believe it would be safe for her within this industry, especially with how lewd VTubing can be. Jason ignored me and said, "We'll deal with the consequences when the time comes." If that's not a red flag to jump ship, I don't know what is. This is where things get really unhinged at AkioAir, and you see everything seep through the cracks of how deplorable and disgusting they operate this place. During the process of creating our designs and everything, Jason tried heavily to push me down the British aesthetic route. I didn't question it too much at first, as I do think it could be rather beautiful, but as time went on, it escalated past just being an aesthetic. Jason made comments how my accent was my selling point, me being British makes me unique, etc., etc. And it got to a point that at every turn he would use it to explain me, my style, and my content. At one point I mentioned this and got rather upset when he refused to change his ways, and that no one else, no other talent, had their nationality or race used to describe them or their content. He ended up making me delete the conversation on the matter because he didn't want people to get the wrong idea. Later, other talents and staff tried to convince him to write an apology to me on how he was acting and how he was out of line. Though I'm unsure how true it is, but a few other talents informed me he was not the one to actually write said apology, as he apparently struggled to write it and he didn't think he did anything wrong. Wow, what a Class A gentleman. A few talents even mentioned that he needed help from using ChatGPT to write said apology. Are you frickin' serious? This next section ensues the harassment that Bunny would face afterwards, as well as her physical and mental health decline as she takes up the courage to leave AkioAir. With this lack of communication on a regular basis from management, I began feeling my mental health decline. In my personal life, we had been dealing with my dad's belongings, and the mixture of stress from both areas was causing me a great decline in my physical and mental health overall. The last straw came in two parts. When we found out Jason had leaked our designs online early for funding for an animation for us, and when Jason finally decided to announce Nofi was a minor, the stress that arose in and around the company during this time was making me very sick, and I felt I had no choice but to ask to leave. I was having severe thoughts of taking my own life with everything going on. I was struggling and needed to step away from everything and take a more peaceful route. I informed management for a while of my declining health, but nothing was really done to support it minus slightly longer deadlines. As of the 8th of September 2023, I decided for my sake I would leave AkioAir and handed in my notice. However, I was worried my mental health would be damaged past a point of unrepairable status as if I stayed. I may have been rash for jumping to leave so quickly, but seeing how things turned out, I don't think it was wrong of me to leave when I did or how I did it. No, you made the right decision. Any lesser person would have stayed and probably killed themselves. And this is where things go from mentally unhinged on Jason's part to very, very uncontrollably bad on Bunny's part. On the 9th of September 2023, Jason sent me a breach of contract email informing me of a breaching my contract in an attempt to leave early. He said if I wanted to leave, he would sue and press damage charges on me. I began somewhat negotiating, staying at Akio out of fear that I would be sued. But when I received the contract on what and how I would have to work in order to stay with them, I would be working for unrealistic wages, so I declined and did not sign to go back. Smart decision. Jason kept upping the damage costs and kept threatening to sue me for leaving and breaching contract. I've involved lawyers to settle this peacefully and nothing came about it. Just the same threats to sue. I am tired and still struggling with my mental health, and I have had some very close calls with my life. And I believed it would be easier to stop being than it was to fight. I am grateful to those close to me and helping me through it all. But I am very sorry to put you all through this as well. I want out of this hell. I am not in a state to pay myself out of whatever costs these damages are, and I am not well enough to stay. I'm not sure what else I can say or show. I'm still really scared, but we all are. I am in a rough place right now, but I don't want to give up doing something I truly love just because someone ruined my experience in the industry. Thank you all for being patient with me and as always supporting me. What I'm about to read to you is Nofia's testimony before she left AkioAir, and let it be known that I don't blame her for what happened. I don't blame Nofia for how things went down. I blame management for how they treated this whole thing and basically made her shoulder the burden, and how she basically had to spiral into depression because the management put all this responsibility on her. A bunch of the things she says in her testimony, even full name dropping who Jason is, does correspond with what Bunny says. But there are a lot of predatory things that happen to her specifically and a lot of unfair things. Things like people targeting her for not knowing that some people do make NSFW jokes or explicit art, and that she would very quickly unfollow them afterwards, just trying to bag onto and rag on her for what they could. But she also mentions how Jason was very creepy towards her as well as the other talents, and that they would use the term girl talk whenever Jason tried to insert himself into their conversations, and that he would always respond with, "How dare you assume my gender," and constantly talk about how he was trying to get his sex changed. Very messed up. He would withhold information from us regarding our miles or assets in exchange for Overwatch games. When I asked for my miles ETA, he told me that it would have to be that I would have to play Overwatch with him before I could find out. I find this behavior manipulative. And also, what is he, 6? Our merchandise was sold at a convention. We did not earn a single penny of that merchandise. The excuse was the merchandise was already being sold very low and that Jason was, quote, broke. I wanted to use the comedic phrase for my promotional material, I love you, lol, as I knew it would have a gamer and a reaction from the public. But Jason refused the idea, but when someone jokingly suggested banged your mom, he immediately approved it and I was skeptical, but did not voice my concerns because I put my trust in management's hands. So not even banged your mom was her fault. Announcing that I was a minor, putting a spotlight on my age, and effectively inviting unwanted attention and scrutiny, I had to keep quiet while watching the people around me turn away, pushing me into a depression. That's unfair. It shouldn't be her responsibility. Regarding alcohol, I live in Belgium, where the purchasing age is 16. That includes some soju, depending on the contents. Without telling management, I responded to a tweet telling someone that I am of legal drinking age, the first and only tweet that I made in my own defense. I felt defenseless, and this was the only thing I really allowed to say. So, for those who never followed this, everyone kind of pushed her into this corner where she was defenseless. And I do feel bad for you, Nofia. I'm truly sorry. And I hope for brighter futures and that you don't give up on content creation. But everyone has to realize, everything that's wrong here falls strictly on Akio and Jason's hands. This isn't the talent's fault. This is the employer's. This is management's. She even goes on to explain how she doesn't interact with NSFW artists and how she really tries to police her stuff and make sure who she's following doesn't do NSFW stuff. When the majority of Insuripity, I hope I said that correctly, Season 2 left, I refused to leave with them out of fear that Jason would pursue me in court. Yeah, that seems to be his ongoing theme as a supervillain. You leave me, I sue you. And I was still indebted to AkioAir, unfortunately. You're not indebted to them for jack shit. They owe you everything. You're the talent. You're the backbone, Nofia. They owe you everything, not the other way around. Unfortunately, the extra risk of a lawsuit is something that I could not even fathom putting myself or my family through, and so I kept silent for a few more weeks. After a while, I started to feel very alone. I felt a very significant drop in my mental health due to being scrutinized by the public and the way management made it seem like my friends had abandoned me. At that point in time, I had no other choice but to pretend to be unbothered and move forward in with my debut. The day of my debut, a statement was posted by Athena Nightingale, in which she talks about her mistreatment while dealing with AkioAir. Jason released a response before falling asleep. He was not present for our debuts. What kind of stupid manager is this guy? I came to the dreadful but predicted realization that AkioAir was no longer beneficial for me as a talent, and I was left with two options. Stay in AkioAir, a company whose reputation is so damaged that no one will ever be willing to support me as a talent, halting any progress I wish to make as a content creator and effectively trapping me there, as I would not earn any money to pay off my debt. Or B, leave AkioAir with the risk of Jason threatening me. Honestly, I'd rather leave and see what Jason tries to do. Try and see what soy boy Jason does. After having put my trust into Jason and later feeling punished for my decisions, I chose to leave. I am not risking my health or my happiness for a company. Above all, I must prioritize myself. I am incredibly grateful to my managers during my time in AkioAir, and they have always treated me with respect and kindness. So, ladies and gentlemen, what have we learned today? That AkioAir is the scummiest, most deplorable, disgusting, downright company that I've ever seen. And I hope you all the best. I hope every talent that escaped this cesspool of a company and the manipulative, disgusting hands of Jason, the best. Because Jason doesn't deserve the best in life when he acts this predatory, and acts this discriminatory, and lacks the basic human emotions to run talent agencies. But hey, in the end, it's good to see that AkioAir is going to be off the air.